Okay, so I just mentioned I got back from the collaborative science conference with Dave Feldman that he put on, and it was really interesting to be in a room filled with people primarily kind of chasing a question all about cholesterol. We've
Yeah.
noticed in our community, we have seen tremendous results with some very severe diseases, not least of them diabetes and obesity and all these things we talked about. But so many people there were also, putting bipolar into remission and serious mental disorders. Some of these people have now become like my really, really good friends, like Robin, who also lives in Texas, really great friend of mine. She is bipolar. When she goes low carbohydrate, she has no bipolar symptoms, but her cholesterol goes through the roof. She can reintroduce some carbohydrates, doesn't take much, maybe like half of a sweet potato, and her cholesterol will go right back down to where it should be, and bipolar symptoms start to come back. So we have people in our community that are diligently and earnestly trying to chase down this kind of phenomenon and figure out, is it necessarily a terrible thing when somebody's LDLC, bad cholesterol, goes up and someone's cardiologist freaks out and wants to put them on a statin? From everything that you've seen and learned up to this point, you must have seen this phenotype in the people that you've helped, especially when they're very lean. Where do you stand on the whole kind of cholesterol debate that seems to be going on quite a bit, always? But
Yeah, I mean, I think the truth is not 100% known, but my experience is becomes predictable. Where if my clients, when my patients go on low carb, everything is going to get better, except LDL, and a number of people, it's going to get worse. And what worse is going to put in quotation, because is it bad, or is it just kind of, it is something there? It doesn't mean anything bad. I don't believe a rising LDL on a low carbohydrate diet is of concern, and only science is only going to prove that over time. And David and his team of research that they're doing, it's already not showing much, and we'll see longitudinal data. But I've also experienced that what they reported about the lean mass hyperresponder, or lipid energy model, or the BMI, like the leaner you are, the higher the LDL-C on a low carbohydrate diet. I see that, and that's almost predictable. I actually warned patients when we first started, like, look, gonna lose a lot of weight, but as you get leaner, your LDL probably gonna go high. The morbidly obese that still have a way to go, it actually goes sideways. Sometimes it goes a little down. So where I stand on it, it's something I look at in context, and as long as everything else, all the metrics and how they feel are getting better, this is not something that keeps me up at night or worry about. I just reassure the patients it's a thing. The long-term implications are not clear, but so far there's no evidence that it's a bad thing. So I just don't worry about it. So.
That's a great answer. I think what you said there, the predictability to me is like the strongest like support of the lipid energy model. As they're talking about all these studies and case studies and showing people and telling stories, you're just like, oh, I think I know what's going to happen. If I understand this model, this person's cholesterol is probably going to go up to this. I'll bet triglycerides are going to be here, and I'll bet HDL cholesterol is going to be here. And it's like correct every time. Like there's no paradoxes, there's no holes that anybody can see as of now. We have to be very careful about this stuff. We can't just go around saying that it's just fine without no implications. That LDL-C cholesterol being very, very high is necessarily a good thing or not a bad thing, but it's just looking so promising and stronger
Yeah.
and stronger and stronger with every day that passes.
I just don't believe that diet or lifestyle that improves everything in your body and health, mentally, emotionally, everything, physically, and just out to get you with your heart disease. It just doesn't add up. Just common sense. I mean, if something doesn't pass common sense, you can build a whole case on a false premise and make it make sense. But if the premise is wrong, the whole thing is BS. So
Exactly.
uh, I love Nick Norwood now. I mean, he's been champion at articulating the ideas. It's all his energy and his credentials, all that stuff is going to be great for the future of.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And I always love this part when Dr. Sean Baker gets up at a conference Has everybody raised their hand if they feel way better eating more meat than they do eating lots of fruits and vegetables and the crap they're eating before? Every hand goes up. And him saying, like, look, what if we're wrong about the heart disease thing and the cholesterol thing, and you die of a heart attack very soon, maybe next week or tomorrow, or whatever it is? Do any of you change your diet? And the number of hands that go down is very, very low. And I
Yeah.
would say in this conference, it's the same thing. Like, does my friend Robin want to experience bipolar symptoms or be medicated and basically comatose? Or does she want to accept the risk of, you know what, maybe all of this cholesterol is going to be terrible and she's going to die of a heart attack? That's a tough choice to make. But when you're seeing all of these people make that decision willingly, I think that's a really cool thing to show, what we know about this stuff right now.
Yeah. And the argument, it takes decades and decades. Yeah, eventually we're all going to die of something. But how long do we wait before we say, okay, it's not happening? People have been doing carnivore and keto and low carb for a long time. And you can tell who's the healthy one, who's not the healthy one. And I haven't seen someone who never had heart disease right before starting low carb keto, and then 5 years later they have heart disease. At least I haven't seen or heard of anyone like that. Generally, they already had issues before, and then it can manifest while they're on low carb. It doesn't mean low carb caused it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And if that were happening at all, the press on that would be crazy. You'd see every week a new headline that somebody eating a carnivore diet just died of a heart attack or whatever. Like, that would be front page news
Oh, yeah.
all over the place. They would report on that incessantly. Okay, interesting. So this would be a good segue to ask a doctor, over the years, as you've been practicing, we're talking about things like evolving our understanding of cholesterol, the things we've learned about putting some of these chronic diseases into remission. As a doctor, which assessments, which procedures, which blood markers have you put more kind of faith into over time, and which ones have you put less and less into?
The belly circumference is the most important thing for me because it's cheap and it tells me a lot about your metabolic health before you even get pricked. So if your belly circumference, your belly, visceral fat is more than half your height, generally waist to height ratio for most people. If it's significantly higher than 0.5, you are metabolically unhealthy. And there's not a single diabetic or obese or hypertensive or anything big person that I've seen that does not have an abnormal ratio. So some people don't seem overweight, but they have increased visceral fat. So visceral fat or belly circumference, some people do it in other ways. You can do MRIs and get fancy, or DEXA scans, but generally belly circumference is a metric for me. Fasting insulin level is one of those. Also, it's never been low in someone insulin resistant, so it's always high. I like CRP, C-reactive protein, the high sensitivity one, just to tell me about generally chronic inflammation. But I look at glucose, of course, A1C, a lipid panel. I focus on the triglyceride and HDL, and then liver function. People don't find in details about AST, ALT, these are liver enzymes. The normal range is wide, and sometimes you can tell that it's kind of on the upper end, and you can indicate fatty liver disease. So I really focus on that evidence of fatty liver disease, insulin resistance, inflammation, glucose. So overall, I that's what I focus on. What I care less and less about is cholesterol in general. I mean, even triglyceride, yes, you want triglyceride go down, HDL go up, but even that, there's a lot of variation there on LDL with the debate. So for me, that's the least important one. I care about the losing visceral fat. One thing I've added more recently in my thinking is making sure you have enough muscle. So I think it's not talked about enough, but muscle mass, because that feeds into insulin resistance. If you don't have a lot of muscle, your glucose can't go in many places. So if you build muscle, you become more insulin sensitive. So I think muscle health is important. So push for strength training, resistance training, those kind of things. Yeah.
Or for the listener, a very smart medical doctor just told everybody that waist circumference, a belt, is your best way to tell whether you're metabolically healthy. If you don't own a belt and you can't afford one, you can message me. I will buy you a belt, get it sent to your house so you can measure this. I love that. I love the markers that you cited. I
This is
think all
cheaper. You can get the tape measure is $2 on Amazon. You can just a flexible tape measure. It's not the band size, it's really above the belly circumference.
Totally.
Or you look down, if you don't see a flat line, there's a little bit of pooch. I mean, exceptions, you've had a baby recently, you have hernia. I understand. I don't want people to attack me for generalizing, but generally true with exceptions.